Good evening and welcome to VI Voices. I'm Emile Henderson III along with my co-host Clint Ferris. Boyd McFarlane is off tonight, but he will on assignment, but he will be back on our next episode. We also have Narcisse Springer signing in, and with us tonight on our set to talk about many hot topics here is the new Senator Clarence Payne. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
And we thank you for this. Is your first time on the show, right?
First time, but I've been tracking your action and movements.
Well, that's good. Hopefully what you've been tracking and seeing have been good things.
That's why I'm here.
Okay, wonderful.
I want to be a part of the good thing.
Well, wonderful. Well, we thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Yeah, man.
We have plenty to discuss because there's just so much happening and so much going on. Mm-hmm. And since we have since we have Senator Payne with us on the show tonight, we wanted to first begin with his take on how the 30th legislature of the Virgin Islands has been going thus far. We've talked about it for a while now, but since we have one of you here, tell us how you feel it's going.
Wow. Well, thank you for having me up here tonight. I feel right at home. Always in St. Croix. I just couldn't get in on Tuesday before, but I'm here now. Good. So that's a good thing.
Yes.
So far, the 30th legislature has been really working as a cohesive group.
Okay.
I don't think any other legislature has inherited the problems that we are facing right now. No other legislature has faced the highest LEAC under the American flag ever. Okay? No other legislature has inherited a GERS system that's hemorrhaging to a tune of $1.5 billion. No other legislature has seen the economics decline just like that. In one legislature, we've lost $2 million for our own branch of government from 19.2 to 17.2, and they expect us to do more than previous legislatures. So we have a lot of humongous challenges, but we have a good nucleus of new people, mixed with a few veterans, and I'm thinking that we're going to do some solid things going forward.
And Senator, and I like to hear that, because what you basically have put forth is what your agenda is going to be, what we expect to come out, because you basically said the LEAC. So hence, we're looking for an action on that, and you put forth that may be action coming out of the legislature.
Right.
Two, the GRS system, making sure that sound legislation comes out of the body to deal with GRS.
Right.
And then the economic downturn and doldrums within the Virgin Islands. All of that seems to be what you guys are tackling. But this is March 12th. I think today is the Ides of March or something like that.
No, Ides of March is the 15th.
Ides of March is the 15th down the road. So in the same week, and yet we have seen an inactive legislature thus far. Yes, you guys have had committee meetings, but where are the bills? Where is the urgency to deal with the LEAC, the urgency to deal with GRS, the urgency to make sure that the young men and women and the middle class have jobs within these shows?
So those are not easy questions, but you know, and that's our resident not easy questioner. Right. Okay.
And he's officially in the ants nest.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's why I'm elected to be in the ants nest. I wouldn't expect it any other way. We have met, according to a veteran senator, we have met pertaining to the energy crisis in the Virgin Islands in 7 weeks, 7 times. Okay? Because of the complexity of the potential solution, we can't present it to the public thus yet. On the 21st, we're having a press conference to begin to unveil the plan. But the governor, from what I understand, is in Denmark right now trying to come up with an energy plan for the Virgin Islands. The WAPA is trying to come up with a plan for the Virgin Islands. The legislature has given Hugo 5 years to resolve the matter, and it has spiraled out of control totally. When you conceptualize something as being the worst or the highest under the American flag, the crime is the highest under the American flag. Energy is the highest under the American flag. The cost of living is the highest under the American flag. A gallon of milk is the highest under the American flag. When you start conceptualizing these concepts and constructs that our conscious state of mind has to adapt to, I'm surprised more of us are not in mental institutions. Because people come here to visit.
Where are they going to go? Because one, we don't have it no more.
Right.
So where are you going to put them?
Hopefully there's going to be some remedy shortly to begin. What I believe, if you can see the light, it gives you hope. And if you can present a plan to a people where they can see the light, it might be dim, but you're seeing something, it can give you hope. But if all you're seeing is darkness, and every other quarter you wouldn't want to raise the LEAC, which is mind-boggling. The formula, the spending habits at WAPA, the exorbitant salaries at WAPA, they didn't even take an 8% pay cut. So to me, that suggests that you're doing fine.
But is that, are you just, I like the fact that you're on WAPA, but isn't that just the whole Virgin Islands government? That we have not curtailed behaviors. Our spending behavior, our hiring practices, we have not changed. We have asked the men and women of this community to change their behavior. They imposed the 8% cut. They asked them to start to be smart shoppers, to conserve. They have done all of those things, but they're still feeling the pinch. And I know what has.
But I would even go further than that, because to the point that it seems that every time that there's a need to fix a financial crisis in the Virgin Islands, we go back to the same people who we've already taken from to resolve a financial or an alleged financial crisis. And so that's the thing that really has me concerned. And like you're saying, it's not WAPA alone. It is a across the board action of how people are not really trying to curtail how they're spending. Departments aren't doing their curtailing of spending or implementing certain austerity measures. But it's not so much about austerity measures, it's also an issue of building revenue. So it's good to have austerity measures, but if you're not collecting any revenue to come in, then it doesn't really help. But what I find most disconcerting here is the other day when I saw a listing of all the homes that were up for sale because people didn't pay their property taxes. And I felt that it was very, to me, disingenuous to do that when you've held property taxes for 4 years and then you say, oh, well, let me send you 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, all like that, one or the other, and expect me, whose salary you've cut by 8%, I was barely making it, to pay it all. And now you put me up to lose my home. I personally don't think anyone should lose their home for failure to pay property taxes, since it doesn't translate into me actually getting a benefit from where my property taxes go. How do you see that? And I know that I kind of moved away from we'll get back to that, but how do you see the legislature being able to handle that and to deal with that issue?
You see, part of that complex problem is that under the U.S. flag, there are laws pertaining to property, value of property, and application of how you derive at a value. This administration tried to implement a derivative that was found to be illegal under the Turnbull administration. Under the Turnbull administration, they wanted to raise the property taxes, but then it was found to be the equation was wrong. Let me tell you how bad it is. The evaluators of the properties values in the Virgin Islands filed bankruptcy, disappeared. They can't even find the company now. $6 million later. Nobody know where they are. So here we are, supposedly left with an analysis, and we can't find the people who did the analysis to justify how they got to where they got to. So now, according to the Lieutenant Governor, the properties that are for sale are supposed to be 10 years of inactivity or more. That's what he said. The only properties that's going to be actioned are those with 10 years or more of inactivity of taxes and blah, blah, blah. That's what he said.
And is that 10 years before those 4 years of property tax that were held?
That's a good question. I'm not sure when the 10-year mark began. If it was 2 years ago, when they reinstated the tax.
But does it also include the Lieutenant Governor's office when they can't find records and they tell you that you ain't pay when you know you pay, but you now can't find your record?
Right.
Does it include those people?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Because I find that very distressing
Yes.
for people. I personally feel that nobody should pay property taxes for their house. That's my personal opinion. And nobody should lose their house because they have not paid a property tax. At least the house that you live in. I mean, I'm not talking about if you own a bunch of other houses, but at least the house that you live in. I don't think you should pay property taxes for that. My problem is, could the legislature do something where, because right now, the property tax revenues go to the general fund. There's no real explanation of where the money goes. It doesn't say it's to fix roads or do whatever. It goes straight to the general fund to do whatever you want to do with it.
And in most locales, it's earmarked for a particular function.
Correct. But I would like to know this. Let me give you an example. Last year, which was 2012, I paid 3 property tax bills. Now we know how.
Final year was what? On your bill?
Well, I got 2011 this week.
I haven't touched 2011.
Okay.
It just came out.
2010. I have 2010. I haven't paid 2010 yet, and I haven't seen 2011 yet.
I just got mine this week.
I didn't get mine. I haven't gotten mine yet, but I paid 3 years last year. Now we know how budget work. Was that factored into the budget? And I'm gonna say, was that factored into the budget? And if it wasn't factored into the budget, what happened to that money to lessen the projected deficit that was projected at the end of at the beginning of last fiscal year or at the end of the last budget year?
We are supposed to be meeting with the financial committee hopefully middle of April to unravel a lot of this mysterious calculation that has been the norm over the last 6 years. And the trust up until now is very fragile. And if any group go the wrong way, it's going to fall apart miserably. So I think for the benefits of the Virgin Islands, we need to find a way to ensure some level of solidarity, because the governor can play lame duck literally and collect a check and do nothing. He can do that, you know? Or the legislature can say, we ain't gonna give him nothing because he ain't gonna be here anyway. Boom, stalemate. Here we go again. The people that are hurting, the companies that are closing, they need direction, they need representation. So we're gonna have to swallow whatever issue you have to move for the people of the Virgin Islands.
But can you get there? Because I think part of it that requires you to get to that place where you're not going to get an impasse is people just being completely and totally honest. You know, because I know that there was a finance committee hearing a couple of weeks ago, and honestly, I only got bits and pieces of it, so I don't know, but I know the parts that I watched. I did not hear any senator ask that financial team, how is it that now a few weeks later, it is now $26 million deficit and not the $50 million? Nobody asked. At least, I shouldn't say nobody asked. The points that I watched it, nobody asked. How did 3 weeks ago, it was $50 million at the state of the territory, and now 3 weeks later, it's now $26 million. Where did the $24 million come from?
No, but let me just go right. Let me even before the asking part. How come nobody swore them in? and that's the behavior of the legislature that needs to change. This is official testimony that's been given to an official body, and you're telling me they're not sworn in?
Maybe it was an oversight.
No,
they
don't swear them in.
It was a new chairman. Maybe it was an oversight.
That's a good point. And in the newness and of learning all the procedures as much as possible, a veteran senator should have probably leaned over and say, you know, go ahead. But it probably didn't happen.
Oh, hold on. It's a veteran senator leading the finance committee.
No, that was Clarence.
Graham, you're right.
Yeah. He's new.
He's new.
Right.
Okay, you're right.
So
maybe it was an oversight.
Yeah, as we evolve, you know, and into what we're doing, I'm trusting that we are going to you know, make some mistakes, not intentionally, but we're gonna correct them. You know, and I'm glad you mentioned swearing in people like that. I don't think it's a bad idea, and it's probably something we should do for all the committee hearings.
Everybody.
Right.
Let me give you an example. I have gone before that legislature to testify. They have dealt with me more than they have dealt with anybody else, and I was just testifying and the institution of a board member for the University of the Virgin Islands for the creation of a board member position for alumni.
Right.
And that's the only thing I went there for. You would have think that I had state secrets. You've thought I had state secrets, but so we need to. I think
you remember who the board member was that got appointed?
Yeah, I think it was the lady out of, at first it was the lady to St. Thomas. You were heading
the
alumni chapter there. Diana somebody. Diana Rogers.
My mother.
Okay, that's your mother.
That's your mother?
Okay.
Oh.
See, then because she and then now it's Matthias Clavier and he's on the end of his term.
Yeah, so she was the first one.
I didn't know that was your mother.
Yeah,
okay.
Man.
Interesting.
Very, very.
Well, you know, I wanted to, you know, I think we're asking you about the question. Do you think that is something that you all are going to at least hopefully delve into the real way? Because as you know, a disclaimer, I represented the AFT in that lawsuit with 8%. And in going through that lawsuit and reviewing all those documents that we were allowed to review, it just seems crazy that nobody really pushed or challenged them the way that they need to be pushed and challenged. Can we expect that this legislature is going to push and challenge them to give you the information and not give you these runabout answers? Oh, Senator, which they usually do. Oh, Senator, I'll have to get that back to you. Come to me prepared. I mean, do you not know what you're coming to the legislature to do? Why is it that there's always this, we'll get you those numbers? We'll always come back later, and then they never come back.
And you're right. Let me hear that one.
From what I'm gathering as we speak, I'm seeing a sense of more adversarial confrontation. It's starting to come out now, and starting today. Today's testimony was rather testy.
I heard
even between a couple of senators. So it's starting to come. It's not under control, and I don't see that happening. But I do see where out of this frustration of the people, we gonna dig. You know, one lady broke down and started crying. She asked to be excused. It was hot. It was that hot in there today. So it's starting. What you're asking for, I'm thinking, is coming around.
Okay.
And at the very least, you want to at least give the appearance that this is a meaningful inquiry.
Right.
Not just out there jackhammering everything that you just disagree with. I don't think you want to give that impression to the public.
Well, do you believe that we are in a real government fiscal crisis?
For years, I have not believed it. Based on the spending practices of the government, the salaries that the authorities, and other sundry practices where it doesn't appear to be like we are hurting.
Right.
You know, I remember when did the economy crash in your mind? What year? About what year you would think?
2008.
2008.
Yeah.
You said 2008.
Yeah, I was because 2007 was when it happened nationally.
No,
and 2007 is when it happened nationally, when it began. And in 2008 when they started doing the buyout, the bailouts, and all these other things nationally.
Yeah.
I've always stood by the proposition that when that started happening in 2007, we had enough time to get ourselves prepared to put in these austerity measures so we won't be where we are. And nobody did anything.
No, but if you think about it, we did one thing that we should have never done. Imagine if the Diageo deal, and people say don't harp on Diageo. Imagine if the Diageo deal had taken place in 2009.
Well, you know what worse than that?
Which one?
Cruiser.
No, I know, but I'm saying, think about if the Diageo deal didn't take place until 2009. I'm going to bet you the economic woes of the country at that particular time in 2009 would have necessitated that the administration be a bit more demanding and get a better deal, because that particular deal precipitated or allowed what took place with Crujan a matter of about a year and a half later. And I think they set us up because we were in essence insulated. We in a sense could have weathered the national crisis, national economic crisis. Because if you take a look, and I've said this over and over again, in bad times, people run to where? To the pubs and to the bar houses and to the brothels. They go to those vices. To
the brothels?
You know that. I use a better. I couldn't come up with a better name.
That's a good one. I like that word for your intended purposes.
Correct.
Okay.
Those are the places they go to, and they buy rum and they buy all
But we
other
don't
things.
tax the brothels.
No, we don't. But
We should be taxing the
But
brothels.
we sell rum.
That's how we make money.
But aren't we in the business of selling rum?
Yeah.
But think places like Georgia, Virginia, they have increased their taxes on rum and the sale of spirits and beer throughout this economic crisis. They didn't receive any friction from the constituents, and they have seen dollars and revenues being generated in their treasury. So you're telling me we are the ones who are producing the same rum that they're consuming?
You know, a part of what took place, you know, when do you know your insurance is not working? When would you know?
I guess when you go to the hospital.
Right. And
tell
that's
you
what
you're on
happened
insurance.
with the American economy. The bailouts and stuff began with Obama, but the fallout began when Bush was in office.
Oh, of course.
And they did the budget, they did the tax reduction, used a credit card for 2 wars. They started to hemorrhage from then.
And they inflated the government
Yes.
with all the hype.
So people was already speaking and saying this is not, and then the housing market.
But let's
Boom.
let's get be
Right.
corrected, because I don't want everybody to think my president as the welfare president. The bailout started with Bush.
The first one.
The first set of
Top.
bailout.
I think it was called Top.
Yes.
Yes.
And remember, all those tax cuts
Yeah.
also started with the Bush.
Yes.
So he started all that so he can get re-elected.
No,
and-
no. Of course not. I mean,
See, I want-
Obama
yeah.
is the man for the moment
Correct.
and the times. No doubt. I don't think, no doubt in my
Being
mind.
the close conservatives
Yeah.
in the wings.
But I think what you're saying, which is true, that the fall of the economy happened way before 2007.
Right.
Correct.
But for us, again, I maintain, we had an opportunity to see what was happening there.
point.
And for us to say, okay, you know what? If we don't start getting ourselves in order right now, that's going to happen to us. We didn't do that.
Correct.
And so, and people who were benefiting by us not doing that, it was okay
That's right.
for them to happen. There's no reason why GERS money should have been borrowed to pay retroactive money to people who were owed money in October before an election. That's I maintain that is like me,
That's right.
or you, I should say, me loaning you $100, and you go to my bank account savings and say, let me use $100, and you come back and say, oh, hey, Emile, here's $100. You have loaned me my own money. I have not. You haven't given me any retro money. So in my mind, I'm going around the place thinking that you give me some money that belongs to me, that you taken from me to just recycle it back.
Correct. But I'm saying, Mr. Payne, I like to ask, but where were the people who were supposed to be out there voicing an outcry? For instance,
they
the
were busy
union.
receiving the money.
Specifically,
That's what they were
specifically
doing.
the
It didn't
union.
matter to them. They were receiving the money. It was good now.
Right.
I mean,
Oh my
see,
God.
the employees, to me, the employees and them, it was the unions who were supposed to be saying, no, this is the benefit you're taking. You're using the employees' own monies to give them this
But
money.
remember, the union doesn't have control over the GRS.
No, but the unions have helped negotiate the employee salary, and also it's all about benefits. Remember, all of that is discussed in the
me
employee's
tell you
contract,
something that
and benefits is part of the employee's contract.
Yes, let
And the union should be the ones championing these GRS issues, and not the employees.
Now listen, let me share something with you. Let me tell you something that I learned about 12 years ago in Virginia. People vote the pocketbooks. You put money in a person's pocket, you don't even have to campaign against or try to solicit a vote from that person. You got them.
Yeah.
People were getting checks in the amount of $8,000, $12,000, $4,500. Bam! And here they were, 70 years old, 72, 69. They ain't never seen an $8,000 check in their life. Look at when they gave out the check, like Emile said, October, right before the election. So the people who are supposed to fight against it, this thing getting fat.
Thank you.
The people in the legislature secure their seats, because if you give a man 10,000, the race done. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, the will is done.
And the church say,
Amen.
Amen.
But let me say this. But think about this. Think about this.
Yeah.
Soon thereafter, 8% is knocked off.
Not even so. Let me get a week after the election. The governor said,
Yes.
turn in, give me a resignation letter without a date on it.
Correct. For some. But
A week after the election.
thank you. But think about that. But the 8%. But then let's go there. And now some of those same people who got the $12,000 and $8,000 check was getting ready to retire in 2011 and 2012, and then in turn now had to pay GRS $30,000.
12,000, 15,000. You're right.
So you're telling me, and one thing I have a challenge with is that my retirement benefits is part of my negotiated with my contract. That's part of something I got with my contract and it's on my employment. Right. However, I am yet to hear the unions coming out and saying straight up, this is wrong. You were supposed to be taking this benefit out of my members' check in 1991. Why are you coming and telling my member right now you breached my member's contract? So my members should not have to go back and pay this money. But I'm not hearing that debate from the unions.
Probably Emile can give
Wait, which one are you talking about?
Let me give you an example. I'm a member of Steelworkers. Let's say I'm getting ready to retire now. And
I get my question. Let me do it this way. Who hasn't paid it in?
The government hadn't paid it in.
Okay. Now, you know, that's one of the reasons why we're having Raymond on the show, Raymond James on the show, because I have maintained that I believe that people may have claims against the GRS for fiduciary issues or breach of fiduciary issues because you have a right to, one, an annual report of your annuity. Everything that came in, and everything that what it raised to, what it will be, so that when you read it, if you're diligent enough, I read mine when I get mine, if I know my employer is supposed to put in a certain amount of money and it's showing to me that he ain't putting in, then I got questions to ask. The difficulty is what you said, is that you have these people who assume or they presume that the government was paying their money. And now when it's time to retire, you're telling me I can only get a little bit amount, lower amount, unless I pay in the government share that they owed for me. Somebody need to get sued. That's in my mind, and that's what it is.
Let me tell you what GERS has told some of our union brothers and sisters. Take out a loan, pay the difference, and then sue the government. This is what some people in GERS has began to share with people who are retired.
That's crazy.
Listen to that madness.
That's crazy.
In addition to what you were saying, which I think is crucial, GERS is saying that it's the departments that are supposed to put your retirement contribution in there, not the government.
That makes sense to you?
Thank you.
That makes sense to you?
I know. I'm telling you what they're saying. For example, WAPA, according to GERS, WAPA owes them $14 million.
Okay.
You were saying no. We pay you. NIB saying no, you haven't. No, people retiring in. People want to go home. People in certain departments of WAPA get 20 years, I believe, because of the fumes and blah, blah, blah. They want to go home. So here you have two entities saying, we are at a standstill. You know how long they're going to take to litigate? Potentially.
But can WAPA prove that they paid them?
According to NIBS, no.
Well, that would be the employees' right to file a lawsuit and let them figure out who can pay me. But someone is going to pay me my money.
WAPA don't have no money going into the lawsuit because they're saying you owe me 14 million. That's what they're saying. Then the WAPA have an under recovery of about 50 million.
But my question to you is this.
But hold that question because we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to finish with that question.
Okay, right.
Remember where you are.
Yes.
All right, back in a moment. Good evening and welcome back to VI Voices. We are doing our hot topics, and with us we have Senator Clarence Payne. Thank you so much for being on the show.
No problem.
You were asking him a question before we went to break, and so go ahead and ask him.
My thing is this. I think you're a former union member. Absent from this dialogue that's taking place with GRS and employees who are hoping to exit the system and they're having to pay these lump sum payments back, that I'm not hearing the unions saying that there have been a violation of the employees' contract, or definitely a gross wrong that have been done to their members. I'm not hearing none of that discussion.
One of the things I was just thinking about is that ultimately you have a lot of men in jail for their child support not reaching to its destination.
Correct.
And their checks are deducted every 2 weeks, whatever the amount is. But governments and private corporations or whoever that's responsible for shifting the money where it needs to go, they're not held accountable for that. It's the person. And Emile may be able to help me out on this here. I'm wondering if GERS and other entities are saying that. Ultimately, when you go in front of Judge Finch or whoever, the judge going, yes, go ahead, Emile. He gonna dress nice. Olive suit that you don't wear sometime. Hit him. Bring him.
Thanks.
Yeah, the sharp.
I try to do it once in a while.
That's what he's talking about. And the judgment.
Go ahead.
Mr. Emile, you finish? Government, you finish? Ultimately, people, the burden to ensure that this transaction is completed is going to fall on the payee.
Understand, but my question, can I as an individual employee negotiate my contract with the government of the Virgin Islands?
Not the way it is right now in the Virgin Islands.
Not the way it is?
Right now, that's correct.
So basically, I can't do that. It's I have no...
Well, you can, you not...
Technically, I can't.
Through the union as a body.
But it's the union that does all of that.
Yes.
So technically, they are my representative.
Yes.
Just like technically, they are my representative.
Yes, there's an exclusive bargaining authority, which is your
union. Yes, you are giving them that.
And all they get back to you is a contract, a CBA, and you vote it up or you vote it down.
No, and they're supposed to hold the other party accountable.
But see, here's the problem, the flaw with that. The flaw with that is the unions aren't privy to its members' individual annuity information. They're not. So a union member can't just go and pull your stuff and say, oh, let me see what you've been. They don't get that part. You get that part. The problem is you don't get it.
No.
Because GRS is not giving to you an annual annuity report. So you can see, okay, for this year, and actually I think, if I remember correctly, I gotta check it. I think it's to be quarterly. You're supposed to get a quarterly report that says this is how much money was put in, this is how much interest you might have gained, and how much went up or how much went down, so you can follow how your annuity is going. You don't get that. So the first time you find out that the government has not paid your money, because as far as you are concerned, when you look at your check, it has been taken out, so you presume it's gone there, is when you tell them, oh, I'm going to retire. And when you know they're doing your stuff, they then say to you, oh, but you're going to need to put in $20,000 because they haven't paid their money. And that's the first time. But my thing is, for these people who that happened to, GRS had 6 months. Remember, they were giving you have 6 months before before you go.
It's a year.
And that's where GRS should have gone through and noticed, oh, wait a minute, government, you ain't paying their money. Write a letter to Gov Finance and say, excuse me, this person intends to retire at this time. You have not put in the requisite amount of money that you're supposed to put in your share. Please put it in by this time. And then what they then would then do is should do is then notify the employee and says, okay, you're going to retire by this date. Our records indicate that your employer has not put in the portion that they're supposed to put in. Contact your human resources or whatever. None of that happened. Don't tell me to put in the money. You need to tell the person who should have put it in. You need to put in these people money because they're about to retire at a certain time. And that's why I say they may run the risk of a fiduciary breach problem when these people don't get their money.
But who is going to finance that very expensive process?
Just to find a lawyer.
Right.
And it won't be me. I can't do all of them.
Right.
I can't do all of them.
But so once again, Virgin Islanders are forced to say, let me wait this transaction out, like the employees at WAPA, which could take a while. Or borrow the money, put it in, and fight them on the back end, however connection I have, whatever political camp I'm aligned with, because that's the best way things get done in the Virgin Islands, unfortunately. So however this is mitigated, it's going to be very uncomfortable for everybody, because I don't see, because you know what I'm afraid of, has the government been putting in its portion? If they put in mine, which is only 8%, who's saying they're putting in theirs, which is 17.5%?
Correct. But let me ask you this question here. Hasn't the law been broken? When the budget becomes passed, isn't it a legal document? Now, you now pay my salary. And when you approve my salary as part of the budget, it was approved with my salary, my fringe benefits, and my retirement payment.
Not your retirement payment, your fringe benefits.
So you tell me that's not attached to my salary?
There is, how to put it, when they passed the budget and made it a legal document, and they're saying that this is your salary plus, or plus 36%, which is your sick leave, That's what you're talking about. So go ahead.
No, but isn't there a dollar amount associated, even there, you may say percentage, there's not associated, attached to that?
Not for your retirement, because your retirement comes out of your gross salary.
No. I'm talking about the 17.5% they should be paying.
No, that's the government's. That's the government's contribution.
Thank you. Isn't that a part of my salary when they calculate that in the budget?
I don't think so. I need to double check that, because that's the government's responsibility. The 36% is the 8.5 I'm responsible for.
No, but so you're telling me, and this is what I'm going to get clear, because technically this is the budget.
You don't, okay, the government's budget. Okay,
correct.
Go ahead.
So let's say they have a budget, let's say salaries cost $150 million.
Right,
We know that's just $150 million for 2012. That's salaries.
Yes.
Don't they then add on the 7% for tax, all those other stuff, and then it's bloated up to the line now is reflecting about $225 million for salary and personnel costs?
Yes.
And included in that isn't the retirement contribution?
In the additional what's above the 150?
Yes. So that was passed by the VI legislature.
Yes.
So that was a legal document. So why didn't that money for its employees, that's there for the employees, reach to GRS?
I don't know. The individual employee is only responsible for his portion.
Correct. But I think what he's asking,
the government portion,
right, is as it pertains to the government's portion,
right?
Is that included in the overall budget for the government of the Virgin Islands?
It has to be operational expense, yes.
So,
yes,
what he's saying, which is correct, that once the legislature passes that budget, that becomes a binding contract.
Yes.
It's an obligation of the government of the Virgin Islands to pay.
Yes.
When you don't pay it, you are in breach of that agreement,
right,
which would cause employees who are ready to retire that don't get their money to go and file suit.
And we need
the
to find
mistake
out,
that you don't want to do as an employee is agree to take the less.
Right.
That's the mistake you don't want to do.
Yeah, I don't want.
So you say, I don't want less. I want what I was supposed to get. Go find my money. That's what you're supposed to say. Now it means that you have to. You might have to hut a little bit and say, well, you may give me this small portion with the understanding that you will owe me the rest while this lawsuit is pending. But it has to be done that way. But the scary part is that will topple the GRS system. If they said they got 14 years left, if that lawsuit was supposed to happen, they'll have 4.
Well, GERS is currently working on a third tier program to keep it solvent. They're doing a lot of increases, of course, and shifting and planning that the public should be brought up to speed on. I would say sometime by the middle of May, they should see GRS new tier plan.
So no.
Interesting.
So with this new plan, are you going to make sure that I'm glad to see that they're now allowing members to be active board members. Are you going to make sure that they also give members more involvement in the operation of the authority, of the system?
When you say more, give me an example.
Create more board position for members, hold them accountable that they need to start to make members be involved. Even some of these people who are appointed to the board, maybe remove that from government house, and let them now start to be voted in by the full membership. And let's see that take place, because we need to see the system being the members, because
you mean let them be more independent?
More independent.
You know, one of the things, which is a kind of a double-edged sword in the Virgin Islands, is people talk a lot, they complain a lot, but the minute you say, come to the front line, let's address this matter. Let me give you something else very disheartening. Very. And Emile being an attorney, knows exactly where I'm going with this. Why would you take a case to the federal courts of America without an attorney? Why would a human being do that?
Well, let me tell you why. It may be because no lawyer wants to help them.
Okay.
That could be one reason. It may mean that they believe in their minds that they can actually litigate it on their own because they have a good understanding. And to some degree, there's some people who are good. They've researched it. They may not have all the skills necessary for objections and all those kinds of things, but they can understand what they're doing. So those may be the reason why and then some people just are a little bit overconfident. And then they go to the courts, any court, whether it's the federal court or the local court. So those might be the reasons why that may happen.
And the first two I can see as a legitimate reason. But when you're talking about something as important as elections, that would leave me very leery of a person who is truly looking and trying to get social justice. Because the election process is the gateway to democracy.
Right.
You can't be having discussions with a judge about nuances and conduct. You need to be in there with everything must be lined up.
But you know what I find sad about that situation? I know what case you're talking about.
Right.
Do I feel sad about that situation that there weren't any lawyers willing to go help them?
That's the thing.
That's what I feel sad about it. It's not so much they go, those 5 individuals going into the courthouse on their own. What's sad is that there weren't lawyers willing to come up and help them. And like I'm going to say, I can't represent all of them. So there are 1,400 and something lawyers that are admitted to the Virgin Bar Association. I am but one. And so I can't take on every public case that there is. But it's sad that nobody wanted to help them to go in and challenge this stuff. I personally feel that there's some legal issues about it that does make it difficult for them. On a moral side, I am with them all the way. On a legal side, things are not the same. And so I could see why there would be an issue, and I know it's an emotional issue.
I knew that was going to happen. I said, when I saw this case unfolding, I said, y'all couldn't hold a fish fry, a soup sale, and start to pay.
I don't think that's what it is. I don't think that's what it is. It's an issue of attorneys wanting to do it to help them, and it's also the merits. There's some difficulty. I'm not sure if they had depositions and those kind of things. Those things cost money. And so sometimes you don't have lawyers who are willing to, take on those things. I've done my share of going and fighting these things, and sometimes I get in trouble. But that's what you go to law school for.
To get in
these kind of cases, to go in there and fight those things. But I hope that I think there's some merit issues with that case that are legally an issue. Morally or public opinion, they're correct. Nobody wants to use false machines, but I just think that there was a way for us to deal with that, and people didn't want to deal with it. And so before the election, and nobody wanted to deal with it. And so That's when we're supposed to do it. So now what we're talking about is invalidating an entire election to start over, to do what are we going to do? And so I could see the hesitance in any judge, not just Judge Finch. And I want to say, because I understand on the radio today a lot of people calling in and just saying some really rough things about Judge Finch. And I just want to say that Judge Finch is an honorable and good jurist. Okay? And I don't subscribe to anybody speaking negative about him or that he is involved in anything that's untoward. I will never allow anybody to say that. I've been in front of him where he has disagreed with my position, has ruled against me. Okay, that's why you have an appellate court. You go appeal if you feel that the judge was wrong. But never in my 12 years of practicing law have I ever felt that Judge Finch was ever doing anything that the law didn't allow him to do, or that wasn't proper, or he was somewhere, in the back in some subterfuge to do something. So when I heard some of those comments today, I really didn't like it. I mean, yes, you didn't win, but don't talk about Judge Finch like he's sitting on the periphery just on the side trying to do something wrong, because he's a good and honorable jurist, one of the best judges that we have in this territory. But it just happens that sometimes the facts and the law for you don't mesh. And this happens to be one of those situations where the law and the facts don't mesh in your favor.
And then one of the plaintiffs won an election on the same machines that she's now saying are illegal.
Well, let me put it this way. I don't buy that argument about people who win on the machine or they win on the machine. My position is the machines aren't good. They're illegal. Make it who win on them. So they are illegal machines that should never have been used. The legislature passed legislation and there was money for them to be able to go purchase the machines that need to be purchased well in advance of the November 2012 election. Nobody did it. My position is, in August is when people were supposed to be filing lawsuits to deal with these issues, not post-election. That's my only concern with how this has unfolded, because we had an opportunity to do it before, and people just, in my mind, just waited too long to get it done.
And see, my thing is, if win, lose, or draw, if you run on something that you know is illegal or unsanctioned, because I think that's the word, or uncertified, what are you saying? Win, lose, or draw? What are you saying to the general public by even participating in this particular activity? What are you saying?
Well, I didn't use the machines in the election. I voted by paper. Because I just didn't feel I should be on the machines. If they were legal, then I shouldn't have to use them. And so I used the paper, but there was confusion. You remember, there was confusion with the paper. Especially at St. Thomas. We run out of paper ballots by 8 o'clock. I mean, who does that? I mean, the polls only open an hour. I mean, did you have 4 ballots? But, I just think that there's a lot more. Election reform is a big issue. I think it's something you can't run away from. It's something that has to be dealt with. But, I'm sensing in this community, it has become even more pervasive now that in this community, and a good friend of mine said it and I agree with her, when you identify a problem and people don't like you identifying a problem, then you become the problem. And then nobody talks about the problem. See, because they talk about you. You're the problem now. Ain't the problem. And so whatever you wanted to say about Senator Bryan, whatever you wanted to say about George Moore, whatever you want to say any of those individuals who challenged that election process, it wasn't about them. But nobody resolved the election issue. We were so busy worrying about them. We didn't deal with the election issue. And so I think we're at a point where we have to get to that place where we're dealing with the problems of our community, and nobody wants to deal with it. We have problems with crime, we have problems with energy, we have problems with our the LEAC issues, we have problems with GRS.
Businesses closing.
But they're never going to stay open unless you deal with the WAPA issue, with the LEAC issue. Nobody's going to open a place here if they know every month they got to pay $8,000.
Let me give you
Which brings me to my question.
And she speaks. She's not feeling well tonight, and that's why she's been so quiet. But I'm glad she's speaking.
I have a question. I know you can't really tell us too much about the plan, but from what you know, how good do you feel about it?
I am confident in the plan because it offers light in the tunnel. It is actually the most aggressive plan our energy dilemma has ever been applied to our energy crisis in the Virgin Islands. The most aggressive. It has a mid-range, has an immediate component, mid-range, and long-range. There are three components to this, to us addressing this energy crisis that's been going on since 2008. You know, I went to a study at UVI about a year and a half ago, and most people don't know that right after 2010, the population in St. Croix began to disperse and decrease. And a friend of mine was working at Innovative and told me they were losing about 4 business accounts a month from 2010. People that study demographics look at all these things as you planning for budget, as you planning for investments, and everything that has to do with how our society progresses. We missed the ball. Senator Sanders told me half of his family left St. Croix.
But that's a question. Do you think we missed the ball, or the ball was deliberately hidden from the Virgin Islands people? No, because let me give you an example. You're talking that these numbers are there, and like for instance, the Hess move out to the Virgin Islands. It became such a sudden thing in 2012. But I'm hearing rumors from the little people that this move was taking place long before 2012, and wasn't that a part of that was wrapped up in this particular
Corporate
thing?
America, Fortune 500 companies usually don't do what we saw in the newspaper last year. When
5 months? Within 5 months, you move a company out?
Board meetings and can see 5 years from now. Whoa, time out. Hey, let's huddle. What we gonna do? What we gonna do?
Thank you.
And then they start dealing. Cause they ain't gonna be dragging this thing on into no red tape. Not them. Ain't no way.
So Senator, my thing is, we hit the ball from the Virgin Islands people. But this plan that you're talking about, yes, you can't divulge. But do you see legislation coming out of the Senate that is gonna talk about mandating that homes be built with solar water heaters?
They're doing that now.
No. There's not a law. There's not a law. There's a law in the book that says that.
Yeah.
There is a law.
Yeah. Senator Hill passed that
When
a year and a half ago.
That every house must have solar heaters on it.
it's sure it's not every businesses.
I think it was business. It's either business or houses, but it's one or the other.
I think it needs to be every government building because I don't pay your bills.
Right.
And it need to be every government building need to have solar things.
And that,
not private people.
I remember
because let me the reason why I say that is because people confuse this issue. When the government, let's use a simple example. You pay $1 for your light, I pay $1 for my light. When you don't pay your bill, people presume that I now have to pay too. But that's not accurate because I have to now pay it for all the other things that have to happen. So when the government doesn't pay their bills, we are all now responsible to pay all what they haven't doing, not just dollar for dollar, but multiplied amounts.
Including the government.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
And they all have private homes.
And so that when now that money isn't coming in, the WAPA can, and in defense of WAPA in this area, they can't put into their infrastructure to make things better. The WAPA plan is old. That's why they got to use all the stuff that they're using. And if the government was actually making their payments when they should, then it will kind of ease and they will be able to shift and move money around the way that they can. But that's not happening. And so I'm happy to hear that there's some kind of plan that's coming out. I can't wait to hear it, what it is, and hopefully it's something that will ease the people, because businesses are not going to come here to have to pay a ridiculous price amount of LIA and WAPA, where your consumption is $50, but your whole bill is $350 because $300 of it is your LIA. So I'm glad to hear that it's happening. I don't want to belabor the point of money, but the Superior Court has been sued by a local lawyer to get her pay for her work as a court-appointed lawyer. Disclaimer, I have joined in that suit as an amicus curiae if the court accepts it, myself and some other lawyers. The Superior Court has actually finally paid her, but the issue yet has not been concluded. If the court is able to come back to the legislature to get their at least a supplemental budget, is it something that this legislature can look at? Because it's a constitutional mandate for the courts to pay for indigent defendants.
Right.
But last year legislature gave them, I believe, 23 million, but I believe 21 million is just the operating costs alone for the court, meaning salaries for the court. They don't include nothing else, just the salaries and fringe for the employees alone. So that's $2 million left to do what with?
Pay the light bill.
And so how then do you, right, but how do you then now pay the lawyers that you are constitutionally mandated to pay to represent the indigent defendants?
Because I work in probation for years, I fully understand what you're saying. Most of the time, and I'm drawing this from working in the States to bring it up to here. In the VI, when they say indigent, they don't really dig into your affairs yet.
I agree with that.
In most states, when you say indigent, they say, hold up, let's take a recess. Come in the back. Take out a spreadsheet. Get your social security number. Bring your pay stub. Bring your rent. See you next week with this documentation if you want us to represent you. In the VA, we don't do that. I've seen husband and wives here, couples with one child. You all need an attorney? Yeah. And that was it. Call attorneys so and so and so. That was the depth of the financial potential obligation. So there you, and I'm sitting in a court like, anybody could think that. I see people that are moderately income, really taking advantage of a situation. So the Superior Court is going to have to take a look at that going
Well,
forward.
let me just say this in defense of Superior Court. There is a form you have to fill out.
Yes.
Once you are appointed, well, you say that you need a defense. You have the public defender until it's certified that you actually is an indigent person.
Yes.
And you fill out some forms, all this other stuff, and they do check it.
Yes.
And if you do then qualify, then they do appoint you either public defender or if there's a conflict, a private lawyer.
But in the juvenile courts in St. Thomas,
well, juveniles get them, period.
Right.
So, so they don't do that for the juvenile session.
Right.
Everybody gets them. But the thing is that you have such a high crime rate. There's so many people being charged with crimes that really for some of them, it's just a real waste of time because you know full well you're never going to prosecute them.
Right.
But then you end up having lawyers to come and the courts having to pay them. But I'm going to tell you, the courts really don't have the money.
What's the rate?
$75 an hour. And the problem is that, which is substantially lower than what you would make in your private practice, but the problem is that it's, you have a lot of problems. One, the courts may not necessarily be using the times of the lawyers the way that they should, which is at kind of costing them for hours at a time. Then there's also these cases that the AG's office may file where, a guy has a couple dime bags. You know full well you're not sending those drugs to be tested. What you're arresting them for, or send them off to PIP to do something different. But you're now paying a lawyer to come there to represent somebody, and that's the court's resources that's being used for that. When you know full well you're not gonna in 8 months you're gonna say, you're doing nollie pros.
Right.
But 8 months later, the court now has to pay this lawyer $8,000 because you've been going to Canada calls, you've been finding this, you've done this other stuff. And so my only issue is there is a real disconnect, I feel, at least for the prior legislature, in understanding the importance of the court's role as its own independent branch of government to do its constitutional mandates. Other branches don't have as many mandates as the courts do. And I just think that underfunding them that much was a disaster.
Well, probably they did not take part in the 8% pay cut either.
But that had nothing to do with it.
No.
Because you know why? You couldn't make them do it.
Right.
As you couldn't make the executive branch do it.
Right.
Which is what that lawsuit is about. But whether they did it or not is no reason to backlash them into not funding them properly to do what the Constitution mandates that they do.
Right. But I think what the legislature and the executive branch were implying was that participate in the 8% pay cut now. Keep the money in your budget and disperse it as you see fit. That's what the that's what the legislative branch did. They took 8% pay cut, kept it in-house, and
well, that's another problem.
Yeah.
But this also wrap up. That's another problem. But
Right.
I'm gonna have to have you come back on the show because
Oh,
we have to
yeah, man,
deal
for
with that
sure.
issue.
Correct.
I want to thank you all for being on the show tonight. We've had a wonderful time with Senator Payne. Very informative. Remember, let your voices be heard, and we'll see you when we see you again. Good night, everybody.
Good night.